Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jade. I create content to help you grow your online presence, multiply your streams of income, and build profitable businesses. Today's video is one of those exposing videos where I feel a little bit awkward doing them, but I also know that people like to watch them, so I just push through and do it anyway. So today's video is about money, specifically how much money I spend as a content creator and as a business owner. I have spoken about how much money my business makes. I will link to one of those videos up here, but I think it's really important for us business owners to be transparent when it comes to how much money we spend, because unfortunately we do not get to pocket all of the money that we earn on a monthly basis. We actually have to spend quite a lot to keep the business going. So that's what today's video is going to be. Let's just get straight to it. Right, so I've got my laptop, got my spreadsheet up. I'm going to run through my spreadsheet and my notes, and I'm going to give you estimates of how much money I spend every month and what I spend that money on. There's a few things that I need to caveat here. The first thing is that these are my business expenses. These aren't my personal expenses. So I do spend even more money than the amount that I'm going to tell you, but that's on like personal things like dinners and stuff like that. Another thing that I want to flag is that I'm not an accountant, which I know is going to be really shocking to you guys, but I'm not an accountant. I'm not a bookkeeper. So I'm not going to be giving you any kind of like financial advice. I'm just literally sharing what I do in the hopes that me being open about this type of stuff is going to help you when it comes to your business or your content creation journey. Final thing is that I'm going to be splitting my expenses into two categories. I'm going to be speaking about the reoccurring expenses, which is the biggest category that I'm going to tackle right now. And then I'm going to talk about the one-off expenses that aren't guaranteed to come up every single month, but often do. So let's talk about the reoccurring expenses first. First up, we have my team. So I have a very small team of freelancers who help me run my business. I have a marketing VA, I have a video editor. My sister helps me with the customer service side of my membership club, and my fiance helps me with my brand deals. So in terms of the payment for all the people who help me run my business, it works a bit differently for all of them. So when it comes to my fiance, we have a commission-based agreement. So he earns a certain amount of money every month based on how many brand partnerships he brings in. On the other hand, we have my sister and my marketing VA who I pay the same amount every single month based on a set amount of hours. And then there's my video editor who I pay slightly differently. We have agreed on a set pricing, which differs based on whether it's a masterclass I need edited, or whether it's a vlog I need edited, or whether it's just one of my normal YouTube videos what need editing. They all have different prices. So I pay him a different amount every single month based on what video editing I needed that month, right? So it's all a bit different. But in total, the rough amount that I spend on my team is about £2,700. From what I can tell, that's slightly more expensive than the average creator who has my size of business will spend on their team. I know that I could hire someone else to do some of my tasks, like my marketing and stuff, and they could probably charge cheaper. However, for me, I really feel like you get what you pay for. So I'm not in the business of hiring a bunch of people and underpaying them or negotiating them down on their rates. I feel like if you pay your team fairly or even like generously, they just end up like working harder and they're a lot more motivated. So I just feel like I would rather overpay my team than underpay. And I'm sure there's business people listening to this being like, what? But that's honestly how I feel. If the money is in the business, then why not give it to the people who I literally couldn't run the business without? I've also managed to build a team who I completely and utterly trust, and you really can't put a price on that. Like, I don't have to micromanage in any way, which is great. That's not the kind of manager that I am. I can literally just be like, hey, can you help me with this? And they'll just do it. And whatever they do will be at an amazing standard. Like, I am very fortunate in that sense. So even though I know that I could probably spend less on my team per month, in no way do I actually want to spend less. I'm very happy with the setup that I currently have. I also spend £650 per month roughly on systems and subscriptions. So I'm going to tell you some of the biggest ones there. So ConvertKit, that is my email service provider. I spend about £100 per month on that. That amount does change depending on how many email addresses I have on my system. But at the moment I have around 7,000 email addresses, and that works out to about £100 per month. I also spend around £200 per month on Kajabi. That's the platform I use to host my main website. I have two websites, which is annoying, but my main website is hosted on Kajabi, in addition to the Creators Club, which is my membership club, and my course as well is all on Kajabi. And then I spend about £170 per month on Demio. That is a platform I use to run my masterclasses. I don't know how much longer I'm going to continue to pay that because it's so expensive, and I just don't really know. I'm having some thoughts about whether or not I'm going to continue that subscription, but that's how much I pay at the moment. And then I'm just going to group the other smaller ones that I pay for. So I pay a monthly subscription to Zoom so that I can host my Q&As. I have accounting software, domains which I purchase purchase and pay for via GoDaddy, Canva. I have Typeform, which I use for like my surveys and my forms. Shopify, because I still have a separate website which I'm slowly moving over from, and all of those roughly cost me about £180 per month. Next up, I have miscellaneous costs, which are basically things like travel. If I'm traveling to a meeting, which in London is very expensive, if I'm working from a cafe for that day, then I can expense that, and that normally works out at about £200 a month. And lastly, we have fees. This is my least favorite out of all of them. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, but every time I see how much I spend on fees, it annoys me. But basically, if you don't know, when you use different payment gateways like PayPal and Stripe, they obviously take a percentage of the money that's going through your account. I get it, like, you know, that's how they make money, that's their business model. Doesn't make it any less annoying. But I would say that the amount I spend on that can very much vary. At the moment, I've just put a rough amount of £300, but that was based on my January accounting report. And if I'm being honest, like this month, for example, because I've had a bigger month, my fees will be a lot more. So it very much depends on how many sales I've made. That's going to influence how much money I have to pay for fees for both PayPal and Stripe. Okay, so let's talk about the kind of ad hoc one-off expenses that I don't make on a monthly basis, but they still have to be discussed because they can be pretty spenny. And I say I don't make these on a monthly basis. Like, I don't buy the same things on a monthly basis, but every single month I do end up making some kind of ad hoc purchase, right? And I do think that will slow down as my business kind of stabilizes. I'm still very much in the growth phase of my business, which means every now and then I do need to like splash some cash on a new piece of equipment or some new software. And I would like to think that in a year's time, I won't need to do that anymore, because surely by that point I will have all the software and the equipment that I need. I'm looking at you like you guys can confirm that for me. Let's just assume that's going to happen. So I'm going to talk about a couple of the ad hoc one-off expenses that I've made within the past 3 months, just so that you can get a good idea of what I'm referring to here. So one example is I recently purchased an annual subscription for a software called Kahoot. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's essentially this platform which allows you to do things like host polls and quizzes and games and do like a word cloud. It's just an interactive software that you can use which will really enhance like your workshops and meetings and stuff. I purchased an annual subscription for this, which cost me around £500. And the reason why I'm counting this as a one-off expense is because I'm not really sure if I'm going to renew the annual subscription. I'm kind of seeing it as a 1-year thing. And the reason why I purchased that is because I wanted something which was going to enhance the workshops that I've been hosting. So I hosted an Instagram content workshop the other week, and I'm hosting an in-person workshop in another couple of weeks. I've got a virtual workshop next week. Basically, I'm doing a lot of workshops, and I just find that platforms like Kahoot make the workshops far more engaging and interesting. And I've received so much incredible feedback as a result of me using that kind of software. So for me, it made complete sense for me to invest £500 in it, which might sound wild to people, but I have made that money back in addition to some profit as a result of running my workshops. So that's an example of one ad hoc expense. Another example, and a really obvious example, is equipment. Like, I'm currently filming on my Sony ZV-1. I've got like my Sony grip. I've got my Rode microphone. That stuff costs money. Like, it cost a lot of money as well. I try not to invest in loads of equipment in the same month. I try to spread out the payments if I can. And if there's way for me to get something on finance, what's really expensive, then I'll do that as well. So for example, when I got my MacBook Pro back in October, I actually got it on finance and spread the payments out for 6 months and put down a £500 deposit. For me, that made sense to do because it just enabled me to have more control over my cash flow. But for other people, that might not work for them. They might just want to drop the £2,000 there and then, but I just wasn't feeling that. That made me a bit nervous at the time. So that's another example of a one-off purchase. So if we're talking numbers here, Kahoot cost me about £500, and I would say that I spend between £0 to £1,000 per month on equipment. But it's really important to note that that really isn't every month. Like, there are months where I will literally spend £0 on new equipment, whereas there are other months where I might spend £1,000. And I really think that in a few months' time, it's gonna pretty consistently be £0, because again, how much kit does one gal need? So what is the damage? Well, if we work off of the estimates that I've just given you, another reminder that these are definitely estimates and this total completely changes every single month. It's just the nature of online business. But if we work off of those estimates, we're looking at between £0 to £1,000 every single month spent on ad hoc purchases and expenses. So not purchases or expenses that I have to pay every single month, just things that sometimes pop up like software and equipment. In terms of the reoccurring expenses, expenses, I spend around £3,850 every single month, which means at the top end of my monthly expenses, I spend around £4,850 every single month to run my business. You may have noticed that I've not actually discussed taxes as part of my expenses. Of course I pay tax, however, I am not your gal when it comes to providing advice or assistance when it comes to tax. I truly believe in sticking to my zone of genius when it comes to this type of subject. So my advice to you, if you're looking for information about your taxes as a creator or a business owner, is to search for a creator who specializes in that subject, and also for a creator who is located in the same country as you, because obviously it's going to differ depending on where you're located. But as an overview, I of course pay taxes. I pay 19% corporation tax because my business is its own legal entity. I also pay VAT as well, and that does not include any personal tax that I have to pay on any money that I take from my business. So let's talk about how I manage my expenses. There's a few things that I do which really helps me, and as far as I'm aware, it really helps my accountant as well. Like, I've not had any complaints. So I'm going to share with you some of my tips and tricks for managing my expenses in the hopes that maybe it will help you too. So the first thing that I do is I schedule quarterly reviews of my expenses. As you would have heard, I have a lot of subscriptions that I pay for, and it's really easy to fall into the trap of upgrading my subscriptions to things. Like, I upgraded my Convert kit the other day. Did I even really need to do that? I'm not really sure. I'll find out when I do my quarterly review. And also, you know, when you join a free plan for something and then you get a bit frustrated because it only allows you to do X amount of things per month on the free plan. So when you have one day where you're just frustrated and you just need more capabilities, you decide to upgrade on a bit of a whim, and then suddenly you're spending £30 a month on this subscription service that you don't need. That's something that I do. It's one of my toxic traits. So I need these quarterly reviews in place so that I can go through every single subscription that I pay for and remove any that I don't truly need. And that brings me on to my next tip, which is all around paying for annual subscriptions versus monthly. So during my quarterly reviews, I will also review any subscriptions that I'm paying a monthly fee for. Any of those that I feel like I'm going to need for at least a year, I will switch the payment structure to annual rather than monthly, because most plans will give you a discount if you pay on an annual basis versus paying on a monthly basis. It is worth noting that I really only recommend that you switch to annual when you've been paying for a monthly service for a couple of months, because sometimes you don't need the annual. Like, you might not really know or be aware of how long you want to use that service until you start using it. Maybe you don't even need it after a few months. So give it a few months of paying monthly and then consider switching to save some money. Another tip, which is imperative when it comes to managing your finances in general, is to have a separate account for your business. I cannot stress this enough. I have a separate business account to my personal account. I would not be able to keep track of things if I merge them all into one. So if you haven't done that, then I 100% recommend that you do that soon. Last but not least, keep a spreadsheet. Like, I know that it could be tempting to just use your accounting software. Say you've got QuickBooks or something. It can be so tempting just to use the accounting software, because at the end of the day, you can put a report whenever you want and it's going to show you where your money is gone. But it doesn't allow you to write as much detail as you can write if you keep your own spreadsheet. So I like to keep my own spreadsheet as well as having my accounting systems. And I use a spreadsheet to make sure that I'm tracking every single payment, what's coming in and out of my bank account. And also I'm writing notes alongside it so I know exactly what it was for. I just think it's going to help me out in the long run. If, you know, anyone ever asks me a question to do with my expenses, I'm going to have all the info there. Sorry, I know that last tip was last but not least, but I just realized I haven't also flagged a really obvious one. Keep your receipts, guys. Take photos of your receipts, save your receipts, whatever works for you, but make sure you have some kind of record of them. That is it for today's video. I really hope you found it useful. If you did, can you comment below and let me know if you like this type of content so I can know to definitely continue making it. If you feel like hanging around, I recommend watching this video. It's all about my entire content creation workflow. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I will see you in my next video.